Hello friends, what's up everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Timisha, the Codepreneur, as well as your transformational coach, keeping it raw, real, and relatable here on my channel. So I want to share something with you that I think can get very confusing, and that is, what is the difference between sensory processing and sensory modulation? If you're like, yeah, Tamisha, this tends to get a little confusing to me at times, can you really break it down and explain it in the most simplest terms ever? Absolutely. I will do that for you. All right, let's jump into the video. All right, so let's jump right into it. So sensory processing. Sensory processing is our brain's ability to interpret, receive, respond, and detect sensory stimulation from our environment. So again, it's our brain's ability to respond, detect, receive, interpret, right? The information, the stimuli that we receive from our environment. So I want you to think of the six senses, right? Think of sensory information. How are we receiving stimulation and sensory from our environment? So this might help you remember. Think of six senses. So we want to think of the touch. We want to think of taste. We want to think of smell. We want to think of our sight. We want to think of sound. We want to, and this is going a little past our senses, but you want to think of proprioception, which is the body's awareness, where our body is in space, as well as our vestibular, which is our balance, right? And which is also our orientation as well. So these are all considered our sensory stimuli that we are receiving from our environment. So when we have these sensory stimuli coming in from our environment, we want to think about how are we receiving and processing it, okay? So a child that is having difficulties with really sensory processing difficulties and the challenge in processing these stimuli, they're going to either respond in hypersensitivity, right? Or they may respond in hyposensitivity. So what does this look like? This may look like a child that seeks out rough play, in a sense where they are seeking intense sensory experience to try to regulate the arousal levels that they're having. So they might, find themselves really bumping into something, or dropping themselves. So they're trying to find a way to regulate this sensation. You also have, maybe, let's see, they may find loud noises to be overwhelming. So they might be seeking to regulate the noise that they're dealing with. They may struggle with transitioning between activities. They may be struggling with maybe textures, right? If they are really trying to regulate what they're tasting, they may struggle with certain foods. So feeding might be challenging. Also what they're wearing, right? If it's wool, that may be very uncomfortable for a child that is having difficulty processing that feedback from what they're feeling through the touch sensation. Now, sensory modulation is the ability for the brain to regulate and modify the responses to sensory stimuli. Okay, so if you kind of going back to sensory processing is the brain's ability to receive, interpret, respond to stimuli, where sensory modulation is the brain's ability to regulate and modify the stimulation it's receiving. This is also the ability to filter out any kind of distracting stimulation, okay? So children that present with difficulty with sensory modulation may get easily distracted. They may get overwhelmed by sensory input. They may have trouble really regulating their emotions. So you might have a child that have some sensory triggers. So they might have outbursts. They may struggle with calming themselves down. Maybe their energy gets really high, and we'll use terms as, oh, is your engine running too high? And they may have a hard time kind of calming themselves down. Children may easily get distracted, lose focus. So some things that we use to help these children, it could be like, let's say a fidget toy that kind of helps them, which provides them a sensory feedback, which helps them to try to stay focused on the task at hand. So this is the difference between sensory processing and sensory modulation. I hope that I cleared it up for you. If you have any tips or tricks on what you are using in the clinic, I would love to hear it. Again, I think, understanding these two differences as a parent is also going to make a difference to see how well your child is processing information that's coming in from the environment, the stimuli, and then also how are they regulating it. Okay, how are they adapting to it? It's going to let you know if your child is having any form of sensory difficulties. If this video is helpful, definitely go ahead, share, like, and don't forget to subscribe. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.